Welcome to another This Week in Coworking discussion.
So, what's one thing that the co-working world could or should learn from European operators?
Ooh, I love coming here every year because I think that all of the European countries do things a little bit differently. There's a lot of diversity in the size and scale of the spaces and the businesses that operate them. And I think there's something we can learn from each one of them. The collaboration here is unique. The alliances are really impressive. And I think there's a deep history and knowledge to share with the rest of the world.
It's a very good question. And I think what's very unique, I believe, about Europe is this mix of cultures. We are many different countries who, I believe, approach co-working in many different ways. So I think for me, being in a conference today with people who, they come from Italy, they come from France or the UK, we also see that the understanding of co-working in their own region is very different. Some markets will understand it more than others. And I think that's quite interesting to understand how culture plays a role in supporting the growth of co-working in general. So being curious about other cultures.
All right, that's a tough one because usually I am looking to the US. I think you're a bit more in front. I think in Europe we still have the original co-working vibe, and it's about bringing people together a bit more than just the business side. So embrace the co-working culture.
Speaking only to what I know, I think in London we've seen a lot of differentiation. And I think it's been driven by kind of oversupply, and we've had to differentiate. So you have very strong standout brands. I like to think the Huckletree is one of them, but there are many others also. And I think that is important as the market continues to mature, that differentiation, that point of view becomes more and more important.
I believe the co-working market can learn from Europe is diversity, right? I mean, we have so many different markets. Markets are not only intrinsically different in terms of the culture, in terms of the way people work, but also in the current state of their economy, the current state of how successful and how predominant the flex industry is. We have the UK and France that are doing quite well and are quite developed in it. We have a market like Germany that are kind of still growing into it, but still need some room to grow. And then you still have very young markets.
I've actually been learning a whole lot about managed suites. I've always been a big fan of what, for instance, is happening in France and in the UK. Really just the depth of flex in the market means that I see a lot of really great examples there, which I think we so often see the US-centric examples, but there's a lot more really considered hospitality and management models that I've seen in Europe, and I really encourage everyone to take a look.
I think the European market is actually quite advanced. Different countries has different variants, and they see how the different operators coming from different part of the continent, they do slightly different positionings. And a lot of them actually start seeing international companies coming to Europe, set up their satellite office, sometimes even like much larger operations. So they are more open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. Especially in the UK market, it's quite vibrant. They're embracing new ways of approaching flex offices and co-working space in the hospitality and hotel ways of positioning it.
Well, the European market is a very special one because there are many, many differences between the local markets, North Europe, South Europe, Middle Europe. But we all share, let's say, similar problems. So I think the way that one solution is adapted to different conditions and how we do that in Europe, this is, I think, a very nice thing to learn from. How to adapt a solution to a similar problem, but within different markets. And the markets are so different. In Europe, it's not like US, for example, or Australia, or where you can say trends are or problems are very, very similar. The market is very, very similar. That's not the situation.
Diversification, maybe. We are not a continent which is unified, as everybody knows. So there is so much difference between the countries. Extroverts, introverts, Katri was saying from Finland that, for instance, you go in the co-working space in Helsinki, you will sit to other people with whom you are not going to say words, most likely, whereas you go to Spain and people will speak with you, or in the US, will speak with you within a minute, something like that. So you have to take that into account when you consider what your co-working value proposition is. But anything, every city, we heard it again and again, every city is different, every ecosystem is different. Every partner is different. You have to adapt and adjust, and especially for instance, the operators who have 10 or 15 locations in the country, so such as in Germany, they will tell you that Hamburg is not Bremen, which is not Munich, which is not Berlin. So you have to listen to your local crowd. You have to listen to everything that's happening. Even the real estate market is different. Even the age of the building is different. So anytime you have to reinvent yourself.
But on the flip side, what's something that you think the European operators might learn from other markets around the world?
So standardization maybe can be one thing. It's easier to sell. It's easier to build. It's true that in Europe, but this due to Europe, we have a lot of national champions. We have, I don't think we have more than 3 or 4 international players, even within Europe.
There's operators out of APAC. They're very consciously start creating different brands. Like so within the same operator, they're creating different layers. They're gonna create like a very top tier layer, almost like a 5-star hotel experience. They're also consciously creating a slightly more economic choice tier. They see themselves as not just one brand, one voice. They actually see themselves more segmented to be more attractive to different type of clientele. And sometimes it's not even different client. It's just the same clients with different needs in different regions.
Look, Australia, one of the things certainly is the depth to which landlords have invested in their spaces and creating branded spaces. Either they're branded buildings or they're branded flex operations. Australian landlords have actually been doing this for a very long time and indeed a lot longer than what I see in other markets.
Yeah, from the US markets, they take more risks. And this is what we, as in the European markets, we should learn how to take more risks and how to calculate the risk.
I think Europe is a bit lagging behind in terms of professionalization. And I think looking to the US or maybe Asia, it's a bit more business driven and thinking about how you can evolve the model, what can you further do to add revenue to the space, make it more profitable in general. I think Europe can learn a lot.
That's a very good question. What I always appreciated about the US market specifically, because I come from the tech industry, and the US was always kind of on the front run, was all about the speed of execution. It was all about making sure we are the first one to do it and we execute well. That's number one. And I think in Germany or in Europe specifically, we're a little bit behind that. I think we can learn from a couple of counterparts on how to execute properly when it comes to speed. And then the second one is innovation, right? We are in an ever-changing industry. A lot of things are being kind of in question right now. Where is the industry going? How will people work in the future? And I think there the answer needs to be innovation, right? What other solutions can we provide besides just tables and chairs?